Here we have Chris Phillips calling out Labour on its smashing the gangs and stopping migration. But what he seems to forget all about is that it was the Tories that started it. It was the Tories that destroyed the country. It was Tories that let millions of migrants come into the country. It's the Tories that homed hundreds of thousands of migrants before its own people. It's the Tories that still let people stay in poverty. And now, please, don't get me wrong, Labour are crap. Labour are just as bad as the Tories, and at the moment they're getting worse. But Labour have been in power now for a year, and they're still blaming the Tories for everything that's happening now. If after a year in a position you can't turn around what you're complaining about, then you're actually useless as a government or as management, because to be honest, that's all they are. They are managers for 5 years if they're lucky, if they don't run an election or get kicked out. I think Labour's going to be losing a lot of MPs over the next few months, going to the Jeremy Corbyn anti-Semitism party. I do not like Corbyn. I agree with some of his ideas on how to change the country, but I think he's still an anti-Semite. I think he's even said that when he was supporting Hamas and Hezbollah. But that's my own opinion on the man. Some people still support him. Labour's still got anti-Semitic people still in there that have actually said before this that Zionists was problems. And I think Tories have got the same problem. And they're all a bunch of cowards that can't call out people in their own parties or people doing things wrong. And we have these two fighting, as you're going to see, over who's the worst at being in government. And let's be honest, at the moment the public think they are both rubbish at it.
Shadow Home Secretary Chris Philp.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker, and I thank the Home Secretary for advance sight of her statement. The Home Secretary comes here today sounding rather pleased with herself. I'm afraid she has no reason to. A year ago, she promised to smash the gangs. She said again and again that was her plan. Indeed, it was her only plan. Yet today, there is no mention of what was once her favourite catchphrase. That is because her claim to smash the gangs has become a joke, an embarrassment to her and to the government. Now, we look warned that law enforcement alone would not be enough. So did the National Crime Agency. But she didn't listen. And what then happened? The 12 months following July the 5th last year have been the worst such period in history for small boat crossings. 44,359, up 40% year on year. The first 13 days of July this month have also been the worst in history. 2,510 in less than 2 weeks, up 213% year on year. And this calendar year so far has been the worst in history as well, up 57% on last year. Madam Deputy Speaker.
The Tory government was dog shit. I think she goes over numbers in a minute, but the Tory government was just as bad. The only reason that so many didn't come underneath the Tories is because it was summer, because it was winter most of the time, or because it was cold. This year has been hotter than anything, and we've had calmer times. And because they know it's an easy government that will probably let them stay.
She is setting records, just all the wrong ones. These boat crossings are now the worst ever. Does she accept that she has lost control of our borders and she is failing in her most basic duty to protect the United Kingdom? Now, she says she has a new deal with France. Yet President Macron says this needs EU agreement. Is this true? Does it need EU agreement? And if so, have they provided it? And a deal must of course involve an agreed number. Yet when the Home Secretary is asked, she is unable to say what numbers are involved. Will she now come clean and tell Parliament what number, if any, has been agreed?
No, she won't.
And if there is no agreement with the EU and no agreed number as part of this deal, then there is no deal at all, just vacuous spin. Now, the only number we have seen reported is just 50 illegal immigrants a week. This was put to the Prime Minister last Thursday, and he did not deny it. Now, 50 a week represents only 6% of illegal arrivals, meaning 94% could stay. Does she seriously think that allowing 94% of illegal immigrants...
It's even worse than that, because we will be at the same... We won't get rid of 6%, because that 6% that we are kicking out, we have to take, as in 6% of migrants from other countries. But as they say, it would be legal because they're coming by good routes, so it wouldn't be a net negative at all.
To stay will be any kind of deterrent. Her claim to smash the gangs was a gimmick, and so is her 6% returns deal.
So is Tories.
The truth is this: the only way to fix this is to remove every single illegal arrival as soon as they get here, without judicial process, either to their country of origin or to a third country. That would be a real deterrent. We saw this approach work in Australia about 10 years ago. And such a scheme, I'm glad the Honourable Member mentions that, such a scheme for the UK was ready to start in July of last year. The previous government had done all of the legal...
No, they never slow shit. Rwanda was never going to work. Even for mentioning it, he's a moron.
And logistical work needed. All she had to do was press go. But she and the Prime Minister cancelled it just days before it was due to start, and as a result, we now see record numbers crossing. Will she now admit she made a terrible mistake? And will she now start a
No, we made a terrible mistake by letting Labour or Tories be in government before
now,
this.
Madam Deputy Speaker, the damage done by illegal immigration at this scale is immense. Far from closing asylum hotels as they promised, there are now nearly 3,000 more people in asylum hotels than at the time of the last election. And I've personally witnessed rampant illegal working from the very hotels that she runs. I saw Deliveroo, Uber Eats and Just Eat bikes in the compound of an asylum hotel whose residents have no right to work. Will she at least commit today to ending illegal working from the very hotels that she runs? And we see reports of migrants based in hotels being charged with serious crimes,
runs them like they did before, and they were doing the same thing under
sexual
Tories.
Assaults on women and children. Louise Casey has warned that a significant proportion of sexual offences are committed by those seeking asylum. Cases like 29-year-old Afghan Sadiq Nikzad, convicted of raping a 15-year-old girl. His defence counsel claimed he did not understand this was wrong due to cultural differences. This madness has to stop. The Home Secretary cancelled a proper deterrent plan just days before it was due to start. Her claim...
MPs like this are a total fraud. Because they was doing it under the Tories and they looked the other way. They covered it up. Labour's councillors, Labour areas did it, they covered it up. These are worse than the BBC for covering up for paedophiles and nonces. Let's not be joking around about it, let's not hold it back. They covered it up because it was Pakistani Muslims doing it. They covered it up because it was better for diversity and inclusion. They covered it up for the vote. And they are still covering it up. It's still happening every single bloody day. We put it on the channel day after day, week after week. Legal and illegal migrants coming here just to abuse children. And these scumbags in this place absolutely let it happen.
To smash the gangs lies in tatters. She has presided over the highest number of illegal small boat crossings in history. Will she now apologise to the House and to the country for her appalling failure?
Home Secretary.
Well, Madam Deputy Speaker, the Shadow Home Secretary just wants to pretend that the last 8 years never happened.
It's the worst ever now.
He knows that this crisis, this small boats chaos, went on for 340 weeks under the Tories. A period in which, when he was Immigration Minister, Overall migration near trebled, and small boat crossings increased tenfold.
And the only reason
when
it come
he
down
was
under
the
Labour is
immigration
because of
minister
what the
in
Tories
charge.
put in.
And during the 340 weeks that the Tories were in charge when this happened, 128,000 people crossed the Channel. How many were returned to France? 0. How many were sent to Rwanda? Well, he said himself it was 0 because he didn't even want to count the 4 volunteers. And, he keeps saying, that somehow it was ready to start. If it had been ready to start, they wouldn't have called the election. They would have actually introduced the scheme that in fact had been running for more than 2 years at the cost of £700 million with just 4 volunteers sent. I can also tell him that since the election, this government has returned over 35,000 people who have no right to be here, and that is a 24%
Who wanted to go
increase
back.
in enforced
That's what she
returns
seems to be missing.
compared to the last year that his party was in charge. It is a 28% increase in failed asylum returns compared to the last year that his party was in charge.
These are people that wanted to go back because they don't think that our country is safe anymore.
Talk about very much. I actually asked him about exactly this when I was Home Affairs Select Committee Chair and he was the Immigration Minister back in 2020. And I specifically asked him, what chance do you put on being able to get a bilateral agreement, say with France, for them to take back people who have arrived here from France? And he said, 5 years ago, that's what he was working on. Indeed, he told the committee, one of our priorities will be to reach those agreements, and it is, I think, strongly in the French national interest to agree such a returns agreement. That gives me significant cause for...
So what this shows you, and she thinks she's got one over him, is that both parties are as incompetent as the other, and that none of them should be in government.
Optimism. Well, turns out he should have been optimistic about the return of a Labour government reaching an agreement where he failed. Here's what he also said. He said, we intend to return as many illegal immigrants who have arrived by small boats as possible. We have flights planned in the coming days to return these individuals back to France. And we will be looking to ramp up this activity. Well, that was 5 years ago. Flights never went. The activity was never ramped up. The Shadow Foreign Secretary tried to return people to France. The Shadow Justice Secretary tried to return people to France. The Shadow Justice Secretary even called for the UK to, quote, take one asylum seeker from France in return for every one illegal migrant that we return to them. Or indeed, more than one. He said more than one. And as for interception in shallow waters, he said when he was Immigration Minister, some boats that are just 250 yards away from the French coast have just not been stopped by the authorities. This must change. I agree. But that was 5 years ago, and he didn't change a thing. Because they never understood that you don't change things just by jumping up and down and shouting about them. It needs partnership working and hard graft. That's what this government has done.
No, they haven't. They haven't. That's the problem. The government have not done that. The government have just literally done nothing at all. All they've done is use a gimmick for the weak minds that think that this is a good deal, one out, one in. It's still a net increase because they have to come here first. And people say, oh, well, the boats are just going to stop now because of this deal. Of course they're not. That's a stupid way to look at it. We're going to have one here. We're going to have a group of 300 come here. We're going to send 50 back. So that's a net decrease, 250. Then we're going to have to take 50 from France. So we're going to go back to the 300 that we originally had. So we're not actually removing any illegal. We are removing 50 illegals for 50 new migrants. So we are not actually decreasing the migrant population in the UK.